So we're going to cover the 4 pillars to health. And these are the things that are foundational for those that wanted a foundational step. So where do we go? We take in these basics, and as we take in the basics, then as you go through your health journey, you will start to say, okay, I now feel better and I'm a little more energized, and so I want to address my high cholesterol, or I want to know how my brain's doing, or I want to look at genetics, or whatever the case may be. But foundational things that we have seen in functional medicine, integrative medicine, are these things. And there are basically 4 pillars. We look at sleep, we look at nutrition, movement, and community. And so when we look at each of these individually and we start to think about sleep, why is sleep important? What is sleep? What is sleep? You know, these are the things that we start to think about. And now compared to the 1950s, how much sleep do we get? Do we get more than we used to get in the 1950s or less?
A lot less.
On average, do you know about how much less we get a night?
About 3 hours less.
Right at 2.5 to 3 hours less sleep a night. What happens when you sleep?
Heal.
Recharge.
Both of those. You heal, you recharge, your system resets, your body actually shuts down, muscle repair happens, hormones both get produced and hormones actually also get released, serotonin, the list goes on. Sleep is very important. Each sleep cycle lasts about an hour and a half. And so if you're only getting 6 hours of sleep, and that's if you're lucky, most people, when I was in my 30s, I was getting about 4 hours of sleep, and I thought I was on top of the world and rocking it. And so I could sit there and get about 4 hours sleep, wake up, go to the CrossFit gym, work out, and do my whole day. Usually in the afternoon sometime, I would do endurance athletics, and then go to bed 9, 10 o'clock at night, and repeat at 4 o'clock. And so I did the old adage of move more, eat less, and beat your body into submission. When we look at nutrition, I can sum this up very easily. If it has more than 2 or 3 ingredients, you should not put it in your mouth.
Wow.
And that's just because it taxes the liver. And with that all being said, convenience foods cost you one way or another. You can either pay for the convenience at the cash register at the grocery store, or you can pay for your convenience in the form of metformin and insulin and Adderall and whatever else, because it's going to cost you. And it used to be they made it easy for us to not, your copay was nothing. Now all of a sudden they're starting to go up and up and up, and our deductibles are, I have patients who have $8,000 deductibles when they come in. Movement, notice I say movement. It's not exercise. If you're a guy and you want to crush your testosterone, and meaning you want to be really, really tired and you want to stress and tax the heart, do endurance athletics. Go for those hour-and-a-half runs. Go for those 2-hour bike rides and keep it up. And just go look and see how many people do marathons and what do they die of. A lot of them die of heart attacks. A lot of them die of cardiovascular disease. Yes, they have a strong heart, but it's still sick because of the way they feed it. Think of your car like a body, or think of your body like a car. And if you think about it like a Ferrari, if you had a Ferrari, would you put unleaded gas, normal unleaded gas in it? No. Well, no different for us. If you're going to actually do endurance athletics and do those things, Antioxidants are very important for you because what are you doing when you run? Breathing. And that creates reactive oxygen species, which causes arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, and all those wonderful things. And so you have to clean that out. And so movement is nothing more than getting out in nature. Go for a walk. De-stress. Bring down what we call the sympathetic response. And then community. If you're friends with that person who is always worried about the next thing. Oh, this bill is due, da 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 da. And we pay the Duke Energy bill. Oh, now the Verizon bill is due. Oh, and now the water bill. And that. Well, good Lord. All you're doing is running from one thing to the next. And your body doesn't know the difference between physical stress, being chased by the saber-toothed tiger, and thinking about it. Next time you get a bill and it shocks you, that's no different than somebody jumping out in front of you with a gun and getting ready to mug you. Other than you can settle down with the bill, somebody's getting ready to mug you, you better be ready to run. So that community portion is that person that worries about the next thing all the time has an effect on you. And if they get you to thinking about it, and they get you worried about the next thing, and they make you sympathetic, that's actually called being sympathetic. You're not sympathetic as into what's going on next. You're sympathetic because they're stressed, and now you're stressed. Well, then that's not good for you. So then you have to change friends or learn how to deal with that stress.
Supposed to go to the next one. There we go.
So we kind of covered this a little bit. Why is sleep so important? How many stages to sleep are there? Depending on how you want to classify it. Yeah. So you have, I wonder if I can bring it up. Impromptu. I can't mirror it. So being geeky and trying to monitor things. This is called an Oura ring. And so the Oura ring tracks my body temperature, tracks my respiration, tracks my heart rate. It tracks all these things. It takes 250 readings a second. And so as it does that, it can tell when I reach deep sleep. And so somebody who's 48 years old should get about an hour of deep sleep a night. And I can track when this happens. And we now kind of know how we can tinker with our nightly routine to make sure that we get deep sleep. If we eat a light snack, and we both kind of work the same way, if we eat a light snack right before we go to bed, we both get some pretty deep sleep. Last night, with thinking about this, and we ate right before we went to bed a full meal, I only got 30 minutes of deep sleep. And so when I got that little of sleep, you're just kind of tired and your body doesn't repair. And so many nights of that in a row starts to lead to physical ailments. So you have to have that deep sleep. And you have to plan on it. You got to think about sleep as something that you get to and want to do. And you can ask Jessica, I'm pretty militant about my sleep. Because a great day starts with a good night's sleep. And there is nothing more true than that. So if you don't buy a ring, and that's fine. I happen to be that nerdy that I like to see it all graphed out. But you don't have to have these types of things. You just have to know that you need that 8 hours of sleep. And so far, the studies have vetted out that 8 hours is right around 8 hours. You should be able to go to sleep pretty much all night. I mean, we have the REM sleep and we have the wakefulness, And as we go through those things, you'll get up a little bit, but you should go right back to sleep. And then you should actually wake up just a little bit before your alarm. And you should feel like you want to get out of bed. If you're not feeling these things and you're forcing yourself out of bed, you're pushing things. And as you push things, you can push them for a little while. But, yes?
Oh, I'm sorry, please finish, sorry.
So but you can push it for a little while before things start to break. And one of the first things that breaks is you become insulin resistant. If we think about hormones, our stress hormone is called cortisol. Cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning. It is normal. You get a little shot of cortisol, blood sugar raises a little bit, you get going, you have energy, it's good. You get a little bump in about the middle of the day, but nothing like you do first thing in the morning. Then it tails off. As the sun goes down, cortisol should trail off. You should start to get more serotonin and things like that, starting to upregulate, getting you ready to go to bed. And if you have dysregulation, or if you're continually stressed, the one saying that we say in functional medicine, integrative medicine, is if you're wired and tired. So you're tired and you want to go to sleep and you hit the bed and you're like, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this and this, and you can't go to sleep. That's called wired and tired. And most likely you're having some cortisol issues. And so you really got to kind of watch that. And when we get to the sleep portion of it, it will start to come up, and we'll go through that a little more in depth. So it's when the body recovers, it's when the body repairs. It's essential to learning. What they say in the studies is when you're in REM sleep, your body is going over the day and the things that you've learned at about 2 to 3 times speed. And so you reenact the day. How many of you have been working on something, been frustrated, gone to bed, and when you wake up, what happens? You figured it out. Well, that's because your brain doesn't stop. And it goes through the day again and again. And the more sleep you get, the more you hardwire those pathways. You did have a question?
Yeah, I just was curious, you said a lighter snack. Is there like a time frame, like before you go to sleep? Should you like have your snack and plan it so many hours before? Versus, boom, I'm gonna have my snack and then go to bed?
So, a lot of things you will hear depend on where you are health-wise. And so I've really been working on myself for about 10 years, and I can tell you for about 8 of that 10 years I did things really wrong. And so now that I have gotten my sugars straightened out, and I'm no longer diabetic, pre-diabetic, I can say that for me, a light snack, I can take a light snack right before I go to bed, and as long as it's not, a Kit Kat or something of that, really refined carbohydrates or whatnot, it really doesn't affect my sleep. If anything, it puts me into a deeper sleep, because your body doesn't sit there and wake up at 3 in the morning going, ooh, I'm hungry, feed me. Now, if you have dysregulated sugars and things of that nature, then what you have to do is you need to go on a little bit of what they call a time-restricted feeding, and that's where they call that intermittent fasting. You've probably heard that language, that term. And intermittent fasting just allows your body to rest and relax. So this is where I tell my patients, think of your body like a factory, and not one of the new factories that runs 3 shifts and 24/7. Yours is an old school factory. And your old school factory wants to work for 6 to 8 hours, and then it wants to rest. And what they are saying now is you should eat in about a 6 to 8 hour window, and then stop and allow the pancreas, islets of Langerhans, your insulin and stuff like that, a chance to relax. And typically you want to stop about 4 hours before you go to bed. Or you don't want to have a really heavy meal. So if you're going to bed by 10, 6. If you're going to bed by 9, but for me, and because I track it, I know I can eat right before I go to bed. 6 ounces of red wine doesn't really affect me. Eating, we do wraps, and we'll do when I say a wrap, it's lettuce with some ham and a couple pickles.
Avocado.
Oh, she is all about the avocados. She loves avocados. And once again, saturated fat. That fat takes a long time to break down, so it's very satiating. And what we're actually talking about here, what we're actually doing, is we're calming the microbiome. So who's heard of that term before? 2. So the microbiome is, they call them your gut buddies. If you read Steve Gundry, he's a cardiothoracic surgeon who's done all kinds of wonderful things and has great books out. He calls them your gut buddies. These are the things that do a lot of control of your mood, they control a lot of things, believe it or not. There's a book out called The Second Brain that talks about your gut and how the enteric nervous system affects the brain. So it affects depression. It affects mood, and as far as happy, satiated, if you're irritated or whatever else. It affects all these. And your gut produces 90% of your neurotransmitters. So the things that we think of as in the brain, your epinephrine, norepinephrine, and that stuff actually come from your gut. So if your bacteria aren't happy, you're not happy. And guess what happens when you take an antibiotic? Yeah, you're killing your gut buddies. And who knows the statistic on DNA? If they do a DNA test on you, what percentage of your DNA is bacterial?
90 plus.
99% of your bacteria, or 99% of your DNA is bacteria. So when you take antibiotics, and I'm not saying antibiotics are bad, there are times when you absolutely have to have these things. But if you have the sniffles and you go run for the amoxicillin, you are killing 99% of your DNA essentially. And you'll notice it's real easy to get me off track. So, back to it. And it's how the body gets ready for the next day. So sleep is very, very important. A good night's sleep will resensitize your cells to insulin threefold. That is on par with metformin. And so 10 benefits of a good night's sleep. Heart health, prevents cancer. If you get a good night's sleep and you go for 8 hours, you have an 8-hour fast. What starts to happen at that 4 to 6 hours? What they call cellular autophagy. And autophagy is a big fancy word for saying bad cells start to get absorbed, reabsorbed by the body. Cellular apoptosis. People who have cancer, the reason or the way that ketogenic diets work is you starve out the cancer cells. Cancer cells require, 80% of cancers require sugar for fermentation for energy. So if you are ketogenic, you're not supplying cancer cells with sugar. So they really can't live, and they go through what is called cellular apoptosis, and that's self-destruction. Reduces stress, reduces inflammation, makes you more alert.